If you're like me, you probably heard of Bitcoin in 2017 when the price went from $1,000 to $20,000 in under 12 months. Then you probably thought it was a scam when the price crashed over 80% the year after. But now you're hearing about it again, and I'm wondering, what the hell is this thing? And why are people so passionate about it? I fell into this rabbit hole and want to share my knowledge to explain to you what is Bitcoin and why is it important in the world we live in today. Before I get into Bitcoin, you need to first understand what money is. Money has two main functions. It's both a medium of exchange and a store of value. We use money to buy Chipotle, and our employers pay us with money for our hard labor. Additionally, people use money as a store of value. Instead of spending our money today, we save it for future expenses like rent, paying for emergencies, and saving up for a future purchase. But what's wrong with the current system? Doesn't the dollar function perfectly fine as money? Well, not quite. The money we use today is called a fiat currency. Fiat currencies only have value because the government says it does, hence the name fiat, which is Latin for it shall be. Fiat money is centralized, meaning the US central bank has complete control over the monetary supply, often using this power to print money. This happened in March of 2020 when the coronavirus forced the economy to shut down. The central bank printed money, then the fiscal government borrowed that money to inject into the economy. This money was used to bail out businesses, give business relief loans, and give direct payments to Americans. That begs the question, if the government can print money to fund themselves and spend, why do we even pay taxes? The answer? Currency devaluation. Government printing sounds great today. I mean, free money, right? But its abuse has destroyed 90% of the dollar's purchasing power since 1950. Here's an example of what this means. So let's say your grandparents bought a house in 1950 for $100,000. Think of this as 100,000 units of US dollars. But now, the dollar only has 10% of its original value. So the house is worth $1 million today, not because the house is suddenly 10 times more valuable, but purely because the dollar is being devalued, and you need more of it to buy the house. We call this asset inflation. This explains the rise in housing prices and the stock market because everything is denominated in dollars. This is the main cause of wealth inequality. As currency devalues over time, the rich get richer, investing their money in assets, while those living paycheck to paycheck sees their wealth devalue over time, thus increasing the wealth gap. This is the biggest fault in the current system because it creates moral hazard by policymakers. The greatest example of this is with climate change policies and the global financial crisis in 2008. After all, why deal with the problem now when we can pass it off to future generations? Excessive money printing also puts the economy at risks of hyperinflation or an exponential rise in prices. This is happening in Venezuela, where inflation reached over 1,000,000%. It's so bad that citizens are weighing money instead of counting it. Many believe the US dollar is heading towards this, and that Bitcoin is the solution. Bitcoin is a digital currency that lives on the internet. Over 300,000 transactions are made using Bitcoin every single day. The biggest argument for Bitcoin, however, is that it's the best store of value. As I mentioned earlier, a store of value is an asset that maintains value over time, something the US dollar fails to do. But what makes a good store of value? One word: scarcity. US dollar loses value because we can print as much as we want. We need oxygen to live, but it's free because it's infinite in supply. Gold is worth $2,000 an ounce because it's the most scarce metal on Earth. It doesn't do anything, it just sits there in a vault. But we value gold because of its scarcity, and millions of investors use gold as a way to protect their wealth. Time is invaluable because we can't create more of it. The saying time is money is true because time is the only resource that is absolutely scarce. Before Bitcoin. Let me explain. Bitcoin has a predetermined rules-based monetary policy. Right now, 900 new Bitcoin is being created per day, halving to 450 per day in 2024. This process will continue until 2140 when all 21 million Bitcoin would have been created. In a world where fiat currency supply is increasing parabolically, Bitcoin is increasing in supply at a slower and slower rate. Government can't manipulate Bitcoin or print more Bitcoin to satisfy their immediate needs. It is the world's first incorruptible money. Some believe governments around the world are going to destroy their respective fiat currencies, leading the world to use Bitcoin as money. Others believe it'll replace gold as the world's primary store of value. If you take gold's current market cap and divide it by the total supply of Bitcoin, you'll get a price of roughly $425,000 per Bitcoin. And Bitcoin is growing in adoption. In August, a publicly traded company called MicroStrategy turned $425 million of their $500 million cash reserves into Bitcoin. CEO Michael Saylor, explaining his decision, said, "We just had the awful realization that we were sitting on top of a $500 million ice cube that's melting." Individuals and businesses are turning to Bitcoin to store their wealth, and this is just the beginning. That is why Bitcoin is important. Bitcoin gives you an escape hatch, an insurance policy from currency devaluation by the government. I hope this video has helped you understand how the current monetary system works and why Bitcoin is important. If anything, I hope it leads you to dig yourself into the Bitcoin rabbit hole to learn more about potentially the greatest innovation in the 21st century.